Hi, I'm Jim Knotts, President and CEO of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Welcome to today's virtual reading of the names. 2022 marks the 40th anniversary of the dedication of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. As part of our commemoration, we'll host an in-person reading of the names at the wall from November 7th through 10th, 2022, when all 58,281 names on the wall will be read aloud. In the lead up to that event, we'll be reading names each day online while sharing the photos of these heroes. For our daily virtual reading, the names of the service members will be read by month and day of death between the years 1956 and 1975 in alphabetical order for the given day. We apologize in advance for any mispronunciations. Know that our readers are doing their best to honor these service members. We hope you'll listen and watch each day and share with others as we remember and honor those who gave their lives during the Vietnam War.
John Abbott, Thomas Hugh Amos, John Joseph Bach III, James William Barnes Jr., George Tyrus Bean, Javier Becerra, Ronald Bohannon, Kent Robert Bolter, Robert Charles Boucher, Larry James Branagh, Eduardo Paul Brains, Charlie Paul Bryant Jr., Mason Irwin Burnham, Gerald Thomas Butler, James Melvin Cardwell, Edward Eugene Carter, Joseph Angelo Sestere, Jerry Jr. Chapman, Wilbur Herbert Childress, Michael Marshall Clayton, Albert Frank Coast, Carl Martin Krill, Rufus Ray Kroom, Roger Wayne Cummings, Frank Maxwell Darling, Kenneth Lee Dean Jr., David Lee DeLauder, Rome Edward Dimmerling, Danny George Drinkard, Nicholas Esparza Jr., David John Falk, Theodore Glenn Phelan, Gary Regan Fox, James Anthony Galutz, Robert Wayne Glidden, John Matthew Goodrich, Larry Eugene Goswick, Francis Garfield Gray, Gerald Dan Gray, Glenner J. Gregory, Kevin Douglas Grogan, Jerry Rowe Grubbs, Joseph Lindsay Hall, Gerald Lester Hartzell, Robert Carlburn Hawes, George Allen Hubbard, John Barden Hudson, Larry Joe Jennings,
Charlie Mazzell Jernigan, Marlon James Johnson, John Victor Johnson Jr., Scott Winfield Jones, Russell Harold Kitchen Jr., John Henry LaDuke, William Glenn Lambert, Famous Lee Lane, William Edward Lawson Jr., Darrell Charles Lintner, Cecil Eugene Little, James Edward Lockett, Kent William Longmire, William Raymond Lundberg, Larry Wesley Mack, James Francis McManus, Douglas Frank Mahan, Jesus Martinez, Paul Edward Matson, Claude McCann Jr., Angel M. Medina Rivera, David J. Marino, Terry Ward Mott, Patrick Henry Natali, Larry Lee Neff, Robert Joseph Noto, Ricky Lee Null, Timothy John O'Keefe, Philip Jean Overturf, Michael David Padilla, James Edward Pantier, George Joseph Parker Jr., Silas William Perobek, Warren Cecil Parsons Jr., Lawrence Vincent Peters, Russell George Peterson, Jimmy Lee Plumley, John Edward Quillen Jr., Samuel Reyna, Derek Nicolau Richardson, John Arlington Rogers, James Patrick Shea, Ronald Vincent Silbersack, George Joseph Skopinski, Ernest Mack Skinner, Anthony Roosevelt Smith, Tabor Sotak, Tyrone Joseph Staton.
William Kodar States, Stephen Patrick Steele, John Joseph Stegelin III, Gerald David Swan, Leo Edward Swan, Jr., Grover R. Taylor, Gerald Lee Teetsworth, John Bryan Thompson, Robert Bruce Thompson, Gary William Thornlow, Richard John Turbot, Jr., Charles Turner, Edward Delbert Ullman, Charles Hanson Vesey, Eliseo Morales Villalobos, Ricardo Villarreal, William John Walker, John Thomas Wallace, Richard Henry Ward, Orton Lee Ware, Rhodus John Warren, Sullivan Wall Watson, Roy Delano Watts, Larry Wayne Wilkerson, Burnell Williams, Jr., Scott Allen Wright, Robert John Zani, Jr., Joseph A. Zutterman, Jr.,